I'm in a very do we have to mood.
Let's do it.
To this next
What's
segment.
up?
Well, it's all fun and games when you do a capsule and put in your predictions, and then you have to open them up. So Super Bowl 54 has been played. We have to open them up, dig them up virtually, right?
Yeah, I think the goal of this is to get as many wrong as possible. Yes, man.
Is it? All right, well, we were down there, we experienced it, we lived through it and survived, and we had some wild and outrageous predictions. Let's see who was right. And let's start off with Peter.
I don't know what I said, but
It's
I
one
know
of my
what
favorite Super Bowl matchups in year. So here are my 4 predictions.
Go on.
Let's start with the game. Tyreek Hill's throwing a pass. I will be in tears no matter what or when they honor the NFL 100 team. Number 3, it's going to be the week of Philip Michael Thomas.
Let's go.
Kyle, you will be shirtless at some point in the 9 hours of live programming. I'll learn that Kay did get a photo with J-Lo and Shakira. I have no doubt that Nate ends up meeting, collaborating, and performing with DJ Khaled at some point.
We the best!
Not bad.
1 point.
I like that. Good job, Shanks. All right, so let me see how my predictions went. I mean, listen, after all, I am Nation.
You are.
Thomas.
Yes, you are.
Check it out. First up, I got Kyle and the Mankini. Peter is going to be the best dressed on the Fox Super Bowl coverage. Okay, I feel like she's going to break the internet with her opening show Super Bowl Miami Vice outfit. There will be a special teams touchdown. The MVP will not be a quarterback.
Oh.
Right there. I would have got that last one right if they would have gave it to Damian Williams.
But they didn't. But you gave the business to Peter. 2
Tracy
points.
looked great.
1 point. You looked great. You looked great. That's got Nate his points. Let's see how I do. I don't remember my predictions either, but let's see if I can beat 2 points. Let's roll. Peter Schrager, who secures us the Emmy by executing a 2-hour tantric segment in which he counts down Patrick Mahomes' top 200 handoffs. Kay Adams frets repeatedly over making her Super Bowl pick. The first shock of the week comes when Kyle Brandt transverses the sandy beach and fully submerges himself into the bosom of the Atlantic Ocean. Jimmy Garoppolo will once again complete 6 passes, but this time it's on the Niners' opening drive. There will be 2 separate Kobe Bryant touchdown celebrations. Andy Reid's clock management will be perfect.
Wow.
There are 0 officiating controversies. And J-Lo and Shakira pay a heartfelt tribute to Miami musical legends with an unplugged rendition of Quad City DJ's Come On Ride the Train. Come ride it. They should have. I like that train.
Absolutely.
3 points, and Andy Reid ended the game with 2 timeouts.
Yeah,
Clock management.
Perfect
Pretty
clock
good.
management. That was a bold one that you meant, and it met. So you had 3 right?
I got 3 points.
Well, I beat him. I don't think I got
Come on,
any
Adams.
right. Take a look. I think Mecole Hardman is going to Devin Hester at the opening kickoff. I think Kittle will show us why he is the best tight end in the league. For the Super Bowl MVP, Raheem Mostert. Kyle, there will be at least 3 photos we can look at next week where you are creepily in the background of Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yes!
Nate will convince you one night to get a Jimmy Garoppolo tattoo on your chest. Peter will also discover something called Cafe Cubano.
Yes.
Nate goes to a yacht party
real.
hosted by Pitbull. Okay, you guys gave me 0, but I think I was kind of right because I said that what was missing was that you hung out with Derek Jeter.
Yeah.
Which you did.
That was the yacht party.
And that at some point you were going to own a part of the Marlins. Is that in the works?
And I did meet Pitbull, so I think you actually deserve a point.
Wait,
time
half a point?
Time out. Okay, you deserve all the points.
Thank
Nate, you met Mr. Worldwide?
I met Mr. Worldwide.
You met Pitbull. Tell us
did.
through that interaction, and oh my gosh.
Well, listen, exactly how he sounds on the track, that's how he sounds in an interview.
Okay.
And I was trying to get him to give us some spoilers on the Super Bowl. He was involved in the tailgate experience.
It was awesome, yeah.
He was amazing. He had a good line. He said, "What happens in Miami never happened.
No.
Okay, all right. I guess a little Vegas twist on there. But he said what happens, people go to Miami and then they get to the airport and they say, I can't leave Miami because it's that fun. And guess what? It was.
The perfect artist for the tailgate. He is nothing but bops. And you know, every
Yeah.
I'm like, Timber, I forget he's in this song. Like,
You're right.
what? It's great.
Yeah, it's going down. I mean, Timber, that's a great song. Bigger they all, the harder they fall. It's amazing on that
Was
track.
Derek Jeter amazing?
Derek Jeter was incredible. His beautiful wife
Anna.
and their foundation put together this amazing event. They had a big yacht sitting outside this mansion on Yacht Island, Star Island.
I was
I-
right.
It's funny, our text messages don't, somehow
Didn't
Nate
go through.
doesn't, yeah.
you guys didn't get the invite?
No, I didn't
Never get the
that.
3 dots back from me.
I emailed them to you.
It was a tough loss.
Time for the lead block.
Time for the lead block.
Yeah, let's dig into these
Serious
Niners.
Good morning,
Do
folks.
They're waking up on the left coast, so they gave up 21 unanswered points to lose a Super Bowl. We got to talk about it, 31-20. Here's what Coach Kyle Shanahan and quarterback Jimmy Garoppolo had to say after the loss.
I think we surprised a lot of people this year. We knew we had a good team, and I'm very proud of the guys and how much better they got throughout this year, and expect to get almost all these guys back and plan on adding a few more. So we're going to rest a little bit, get over the sum, but we'll be very fired up for next year.
You know, the one positive you can take out of it is guys care about it. Guys care about each other. Guys care about this organization. You know, a lot of good came from this year. It's hard to look at it right now and see that good, but you know, we got a young football team, very talented football team, and so it's just one of those things you got to remember this feeling and let it fuel you in the future.
Jimmy Garoppolo used to being on the winning side of these teams, of course, and after the game, George Kittle, who just crushed over the past 2 seasons, said that the legendary revenge tour of 2020 is coming. What do we think of that?
I hope it happens. I like Kittle. I like the Niners a lot. There's a lot going for them, all right? They kept Coach Saleh. They kept a lot of their players in pretty good shape contractually. That loss in the Super Bowl was their first loss this season, didn't come on the last play of the game. Like, they're a juggernaut. And yet, I've seen how these things go, and it's very tough. Do you remember last year's Rams? Do you remember this year's Rams? Because I really don't. A lot of good teams. Last year's Bears were very good, underwhelming this year. I think it's very difficult to stay that way, especially if I look at the NFC West, which has dogs in it. I'm not counting out McVay or Russ or Kyler. If you were to ask me right now, would you bet on the Niners being back deep in the playoffs here? The answer would be no, because I've seen many great teams and they don't get back there.
I do think that Jimmy Garoppolo has the right temperament. And what do I mean by that? He's not an emotional guy where it's high and low and high and low. And Jimmy Garoppolo is Jimmy Garoppolo on a Tuesday in June or Super Bowl Sunday. He's just like
Nash,
this.
you talked to Garoppolo right before the Super Bowl. What's he like?
Cool.
On the field, you're right there.
On the field, cool. What's up, Shrakes? How we doing? Hey, I'm like, oh my God, it's the biggest game. No, we're good. We've got a great game plan. We're ready to go. Now look, did the fourth quarter go as planned? No. Did he outplay Patrick Mahomes for 3/4 of this football game? Yes. There's a lot to build on for Jimmy Garoppolo, and there's a lot to build on for the 49ers. Kyle, you nailed it. Players, DeForest Buckner might be the best player on that defense. He might be a free agent casualty. We don't know how that's going to play out. But besides him, they bring back just about everybody. And more importantly, Saleh's back. Mike LaFleur is back. Mike McDaniel is back. Kyle Shanahan
They didn't get
is
fleeced.
back. They did not get fleeced. There's not going to be some bleeding of the coaching staff, which happens so often. I think this team is going to be very good next year. And because of the way they're built, inside out, defensive line, offensive line, it's going to be very hard to just say, oh, they were a flash in the pan. You're going to have to beat them physically. The Chiefs were able to do that, but it took them about 47 minutes to finally feel comfortable in that game. I think the Niners are going to be back. Would I say they're the favorites in the NFC, though? I might not do that.
NFC West?
NFC West, maybe.
NFC's loaded.
It's loaded conference.
I know,
And every year it seems to be a turnover of who's the new it thing.
He's been successful, right? We're familiar with
Who's
the
he,
record. We
Kyle
talk
or
about-
Jimmy?
We're talking Jimmy Garoppolo, okay? We understand that he's 21-6 as a starter for the San Francisco 49ers. He's a winner. We understand that they had 4 fourth-quarter comebacks this season, tied for the most in the league. So he knows how to play good in clutch moments. You remember that 50-burger game where they're going back and forth with the Saints and they leave New Orleans with the win? We get it. He can play big in clutch moments. But despite all that, when they were up 20-10, he overthrew Deebo Samuel. When he had Emmanuel Sanders on a shot, Emmanuel had 2 steps on 2 guys. He overthrew him by about 7 yards. I'm not saying that this will define him, but until he gets back to this moment again and can excel in those moments, those very specific moments, we're talking Super Bowl champion, I can prove I'm worth every dollar moments, then we will continue to talk about this. We all love 90s NBA. Do you remember that Orlando Magic team when Nick Anderson got on the free throw line?
Of course.
Yeah.
Penny Hardaway, Shaq, Horace Grant.
And ever since then, he never shook that. And almost to the point where when he went to go to the free throw line, he didn't want that action. He didn't want that smoke. I'm not saying that this is that situation. It's completely different being a quarterback, but you don't get this many.
Pretty good. Magic never got back.
They never got back, and it changed Nick Anderson forever. I don't care how much money you make if you're Jimmy Garoppolo. He's a made man. I don't care how good you play in the regular season. He'll probably get his team to the playoffs once again. But what if he never gets back to the Super Bowl? Or what if he does, and this happens again in the fourth quarter? Then he's going to have that title that, man, does Jimmy Garoppolo get a little shook in the moments that matter? Because even the passes that they did complete, he was sitting back there just a little nervous. He wasn't as smooth as he was in the first 3 quarters.
Oh, that last drive, for sure.
There's so many different people to blame, right? You could talk about the defense late in the game. You could talk about Kyle Shanahan, clock management, Jimmy Garoppolo as well. I just feel like those couple of passes in that fourth quarter were some of the greats. We're talking about Brady, Peyton Manning.
Breeze.
They would have iced it.
This game came down to Jimmy, so here's what I'm hearing at the table, especially from you, Strays, who have talked to him. He's going to be fine. This performance, this loss, which he's culpable for, will not shake his confidence. He'll come back. He's got the temperament, and he can be resilient and do his thing. Is your confidence not shaken in the Niners because of Jimmy Garoppolo's performance? How could we possibly pick them to be the favorites in the NFC next year with the loaded conference, with the quarterbacks that play in that conference, after what Jimmy Garoppolo didn't do on the field when he could? He could have led a great comeback win, and he failed in doing so. And we all knew at some point this Super Bowl is going to come down to, because of the high-flying offense that you can't keep, and they did for 3 quarters, it's going to come down to Jimmy. Isn't your confidence shaken?
I was very surprised. I thought he would play better in the big moments. I think if you're a Niners fan, what you go back to is we're up by 10 points in the fourth quarter of the Super Bowl. And we did have to rely on Jimmy, but most of the season we don't. Most of the season we're going to maul you, and we're going to play defense, and we're going to build up that record, and most of that is going to be coming back. So Garoppolo, we talk about how young Mahomes. Garoppolo still as a starter is still young too. He's now entering his prime. There's every reason I think he should be better with another year with Shanahan. We're up 10 in the fourth quarter. I think we can get back.
I would say this. 2 years ago, it was Jalen Ramsey talking after the AFC Championship game, and he had that big offseason where he was in GQ, and the Jaguars went in the tank. Last year, a lot of Rams hype, right? A lot of Rams hype. And then they made the trade for Ramsey, and they had all these names, and they didn't do it. Do we want to maybe be patient on George Kittle having the offseason of every single media opportunity, every single marketing thing? Do we want to be a little Richard Sherman maybe talking as much as they did at the end? Do they want to maybe take a step back? Because as we've seen, when you don't hoist that Lombardi trophy and you get that close, there's a real intoxicating pill to say, well, next year is our year.
He's already calling it the revenge tour already.
How do you avoid becoming suspect of or subject of ridicule when you don't come up again? Is there a different playbook to this thing than we're going to be back, revenge tour, all this stuff? Like, is it maybe just being humble and laying low, and the Niners saying, we know the NFC is really good, and it's going to take everything and then some to get back here?
The Super Bowl hangover isn't just for the victor. Like, we get it. It's exhausting because the Chiefs are going to do this world tour, and they have the ring. You know what? You get the luxury of chilling the next couple of years. If they don't win next year, who cares?
No Eagles fan is angry about the last few years, even if they didn't win the Super Bowl.
But when it comes to losing it, it is exhausting. And think about it. You mentioned a couple of squads. What about that Falcons team where they had the league MVP and Matt Ryan, and they went and it seemed like they had everything. A couple of running backs, a couple of wide receivers, a defense that we kept praising, a good head coach that we all love. Them dudes haven't even sniffed the playoffs. So is this going to be the same thing? The only reason, I know the team's great, but history tells us that if you lose a Super Bowl, it is so hard to get back. And you know, if we're saying this here at the table, you know who else is looking at that and thinking the same thing? The Seattle Seahawks, the Arizona Cardinals. Like, they get it as well. The Rams are saying, all right, it's time for us to reclaim our spot because we know firsthand how exhausted these guys are going to be come week 1. I'm just saying this was a magical year that should have ended up with a ring for the 49ers. And I'm not sure it's going to be as easy for them to dominate next season.
It's so hard to get back. It is so hard to get back,
tough.
and it makes with the New England Patriots.